You found the perfect target. It was a moon without a name, a gray orphan in a forgotten star system. The galactic charts barely even marked its existence. It was just a number, a cold designation. Silent, still, and utterly ignored by everyone. Everyone but you. You saw it not for what it was, but for what it could be. A blank canvas of rock and dust. No life stirred on its surface. No history is written in its craters. It was the galaxy's forgotten stone. And you were about to become its only memory. Your ship, a rust bucket held together by hope, drifted in the moon's shadow. Its silence was a comfort. No patrols ever came this way. No mining guilds cared for its worthless ores. It was a perfect, lonely place for an impossible crime. You were going to steal the moon. This theft was not for riches. It was not for power or for fame. You sought no throne, no empire built on a stolen world. This was a promise, a quiet vow made in starlight long ago, a promise to the ghosts of a world that was no more. You remembered a sky that was not black. It was a deep, impossible blue. You remembered a silver moon that hung in that sky. It was a lantern for dreamers and a clock for poets. That moon had names. All of it did. The craters, the seas, the mountains. Those names were a language of belonging. Now that language was dead. The world that spoke it was gone. But the promise you made to them was not. You would find a new home for that old moon, or you would build one. So you chose this gray orphan. This nameless rock would carry the weight of your memories. It would become a monument to a whisper, a headstone floating in the endless dark. A final story for a people who had no one left to listen. Your work began in the quiet dark. You were a ghost haunting the surface of a ghost world. Your tools were scrap. Your equipment was salvaged from a dozen forgotten shipyards. You were a madman building a miracle out of junk. The galaxy's empires built with perfect alloys. You built with rust and with sheer will. Your ship was the heart of the operation, a relic named the Memory. Its fusion core sputtered and whined. The coffee machine was broken, a truly unforgivable flaw. But its welding arms were strong. Its cargo bay was filled with salvaged drives. Engines ripped from the husks of dead freighters. You worked for cycles without rest. You anchored the first engine deep within a crater. You bolted it to the bedrock of the moon itself. Then you did it again and again. A ring of impossible machines. A crown of scrap for your new world. Each one a testament to your foolish, beautiful plan. Your hands ached and your body was tired. But your determination was a star burning inside you. This was more than machinery. It was an act of faith. You were stitching a soul into a body of cold stone, a soul made of memory. The moment came. A switch was flipped within your cockpit. A deep thrum vibrated through the rock. It was a sound no one had ever heard here. The first engine ignited, not with a roar, but with a gentle, silent push, a whisper of force against the immense weight of the world. Out in the void, it was invisible, a single, low-powered plasma drive. But the galaxy's sensors were sensitive. They felt everything. Deep in some sterile data center, a light blinked. An algorithm noted a discrepancy, a tiny error in their perfect star science. The moon, Asset 734, had moved. It had shifted its orbital position by a few centimeters. The system flagged it as a sensor ghost, a bit of cosmic dust messing with the readings. The alert was logged, then it was dismissed. No one could move a moon. It was a ridiculous thought. You smiled in your cockpit. The first step was taken. The first shove had been a success. You were not just a thief anymore. You were a force of nature, a very small and very patient one. You let the drive burn for a full day, a quiet, steady pressure, a secret known only to you and the cold, unfeeling code. One engine was a glitch. A handful of engines was an anomaly. You brought 3 more online. They hummed in unison, a chorus of reclaimed power. The moon's drift was no longer measured in centimeters. It was now measured in meters, then in kilometers. A slow, deliberate crawl away from its parent planet. The Empire's eye was waking up. Not a person, nothing so sentimental. It was a network, a web of sensors and artificial minds. They watched the star lanes and guarded the star science. They saw a world moving when it should not be. The dismissed error became a persistent anomaly. Automated probes were routed to investigate. Tiny, fast ships with 1,000 eyes. They would be here in a few cycles. They expected to find a strange gravitational pull, perhaps a micro-singularity. They did not expect to find you. They did not expect to find a human with a stolen moon. You felt their approach. Your own makeshift sensors screamed warnings. It was time to stop being subtle. You ignited the entire ring of engines, a dozen salvage drives firing as one. The moon shuddered, and for the first time, it truly began to move. It was a world on the run. Your command center was not a bridge. There were no polished chrome chairs, no holographic displays shimmering in the air. Your cockpit was a cave, carved into the heart of the moon itself. Wires and conduits ran like veins through ancient rock. Your control panel was bolted directly to a granite slab. You were the brain of this new world. Its nervous system was the web of cables you had laid. The vibration of the engines was your heartbeat. You felt the subtle shifts in gravity as your own. This was not a vehicle you were piloting. You had become the soul of the machine. Screens flickered around you. They showed star charts, engine diagnostics, the fast-approaching signatures of the probes. You were surrounded by the raw gray stone of your world. It was a fortress. It was a cockpit. It was home. You were not just moving a world. You had become its will. Every course correction was a thought. Every engine burn was an instinct. The line between you and the moon was blurring. You were a ghost in a very, very big machine. As you journeyed through the black, you started your second task. You were not just a pilot. You were a poet. This world was yours now. It deserved more than a number. It deserved names. You opened a channel to the moon's surface. A small comm drone drifted out. It became your eyes. You looked down upon a vast, dark plain, a sea of cooled lava from 1 billion years ago. You named it the Sea of Tranquility. A small, bright crater on its edge caught your eye. You called it Armstrong. Another became Aldrin. A third, Collins. Names from a ghost story. Names from a dead world called Earth. Each crater received its baptism. Each mountain range was christened. You filled the silence with the poetry of a lost language. The Sea of Rains, the Ocean of Storms, the Kepler crater, the Copernicus crater. You were painting the gray canvas with memories. This was your weapon against the void, a weapon of sentiment. The Empire had charts and numbers. You had stories. This moon was no longer a cold, dead asset. It was a map of your heart, a world given meaning by a single, determined human. Your quiet project was now a galactic headline. At least, it was on the internal networks of the enforcers. The probes had arrived. They saw the impossible. A moon under controlled propulsion. They sent back frantic data streams. The anomaly was not a natural event. It was a theft. A fleet was dispatched. Not a small one. This was a fleet belonging to the Elder Ones, a species that prized order above all else. A moved moon was the ultimate act of chaos. It was a disruption to the great, silent clockwork of the universe. They came to correct the error. Their ships were beautiful and terrifying, sleek silver blades that cut through the void without a sound. They moved with a chilling precision. They did not rush. They simply appeared, boxing you in. They expected a rogue system, a machine glitch. They did not expect a pilot. They certainly did not expect a human. Your species was considered a minor footnote in the Galactic Codex, mostly harmless, prone to poetry and pointless sentiment. They hailed you. Their signal was crisp, cold, and demanding. They were not here to talk. They were here to enforce. Your destination was a ghost, a dead system at the far edge of the galaxy. The charts of the Elder Ones marked it as empty, a burned-out star, a few chunks of rock, useless, forgotten. But to you, it was the only destination that mattered. It was the system where your world had been, the place you had once called home. The blue marble you remembered was now a charred cinder. The sun that had warmed it was a cold, white dwarf. There was nothing there for anyone, nothing but ghosts. And that was the point. You were taking this moon home. You were going to place it in orbit around a planet that no longer existed. It was a foolish, sentimental journey, a pilgrimage to a dead god, an act of faith in a faithless universe. The fleet of the Elder Ones did not understand your trajectory. Their star science said you were heading for nothing. They assumed you were lost, or insane, perhaps both. It did not matter. You were a disruption, and you had to be contained. Their engines flared as they moved to intercept you. The dance began. Their fleet was faster. Their technology was superior in every way. But you had an advantage. You were completely unpredictable. Their star science was built on logic, on the most efficient path from one point to another. Your navigation was a work of art. You did not fly in straight lines. You used the gravity of a nearby gas giant. You performed a slingshot maneuver that strained your engines. The moon groaned under the stress, but it shot you out into a dense asteroid field, a place their perfect ships would never dare to enter. You weaved through the spinning rocks. It was a beautiful, illogical ballet. You used the asteroids as cover. Their sensors struggled to track you in the chaos. You were a phantom hiding behind a curtain of stone. It was a masterpiece of desperate navigation. They could not predict your moves because your moves were not logical. They were emotional. You were not trying to win. You were just trying to get home. That singular, simple purpose made you a puzzle their machines could not solve. They were chasing a ghost driven by a feeling. You could not run forever. The asteroid field ended. Open space lay before you. Their ships emerged from the rock-strewn chaos, their perfect formations intact. They had you. Energy signatures spiked across their hulls. Weapon systems were online. They were preparing to disable your engines, to end your impossible journey. You were trapped. Destruction was imminent. So you used your only remaining weapon. You opened a broadcast channel, all frequencies, unencrypted. You sent a simple message into the void, a message that was not a surrender, not a threat. You spoke the names. "This is the Sea of Tranquility," you said. Your voice was calm. It echoed in the silence between worlds. "We are passing the Armstrong crater." The ships of the Elder Ones paused. Their energy signatures dipped slightly. They were listening, confused. "To our port side is the ocean of storms." You continued your broadcast. You gave them a tour of your stolen world. You spoke of craters named for old thinkers, for forgotten explorers, for the poets of a world turned to ash. Your act of sentiment was your only defense. A shield made of names. A world stood against a fleet. Your tiny moon, your ark of memory, was surrounded. The warships of the Elder, ones were a cage of silver blades. Their patience was finally gone. A new message came, hailing you on the channel you had opened. A voice, cold and synthesized, spoke in perfect sterile galactic standard. Identify yourself and your purpose. The voice was without emotion. You are in possession of an unclassified asset. It must be returned to its designated orbit. Surrender the asset now. Asset. They called your world an asset. A thing, a piece on their perfect game board. They did not see the seas or the craters. They did not hear the names. They saw a rock that was in the wrong place. And they were here to put it back. They demanded your surrender. They demanded you give up your promise. They demanded you let the ghosts of your past fade into nothing. You thought for a moment. You looked at the image of their lead ship on your screen. So perfect, so logical, so empty. You knew you could not fight them. You could not outrun them. But perhaps, just perhaps, you could talk to them. You did not answer their demand. You answered their question. My purpose, you said, your voice still calm, is a story. The Elder. Ones did not trade in stories. They traded in data. Your response was not in their databases. You answered their demand for surrender with a tale. You told them of Earth. You spoke of its vast blue oceans. You described its green continents. You told them of the billions of lives lived beneath a silver moon. A moon that watched generations be born and die. A moon that was a constant in a sky full of change. You told them how that moon had names, not designations, real names, given by people who looked up at it in wonder. You told them how your people had even walked upon it. An act of beautiful, pointless curiosity. A journey made for the sake of the journey itself. And you told them of the promise. A promise made to the last survivors. As your world died, you swore you would not let its memory die with it. You would build a monument. You would give their moon a new sky to hang in, even if that sky was empty. You were keeping a promise to the dead. You reached the end of your journey. The dead system welcomed you with silence. Your sensors showed the remains, a blackened pearl that was once Earth, a dim, white ember that was once the sun. There was no life here. There was nothing but the end of a story. You began the final maneuver. The engines fired in careful, precise bursts. You gently nudged your stolen world, the moon you had named, the moon you had carried across the galaxy. You pushed it into a slow, stable orbit, a perfect silent circle around the ghost of your home. The journey was over. You had done it. You had brought the moon back. It hung in an empty sky, a new moon for no one, a silver tombstone in a graveyard of stars. Your promise was fulfilled. You had given your ghosts their sky back, a quiet place for them to rest. The fleet of the Elder, ones watched. Their ships hung in the darkness, silent and still. They had followed you all the way. They had listened to your story, and now they witnessed its end. Their weapon systems were cold. Their engines were idle. They simply floated in the void, watching you. They did not fire. They did not try to take the moon back. They could not comprehend your act. It was a gesture of profound illogicality. You had spent immense resources. You had risked your life, all to place a rock in orbit around another rock. It served no purpose. It gained you nothing. Their perfect star science had no explanation for you. You were not a thief. A thief takes things for gain. You were not a terrorist. You sought no destruction. You were something new, something their databases had no name for. So they gave you one. In their silent, internal logs, they changed your designation. You were no longer the anomaly. You were the gardener, a being who planted memories where worlds once grew. The fleet of the Elder, ones turned, their silver ships moving as one. And in stunned silence, they left you alone with your new moon.